Hey, Ramblers. Before we kick off today's episode, thank you for even taking the time to listen to the podcast. We appreciate it. If you love the podcast, toss your 2 cents in using the hashtag Let's Ramble and make sure you hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on all the latest content and updates. Visit us at our new website at offsource.tech and make sure to follow us across all social platforms at Assistance HQ. Now let's ramble. And now, a moment from our sponsor.
Yeah. Then how are the people performing it going to live if they don't get paid enough to live?
Because those should be college students.
No, you can't say that you want a service and then also say to the person performing it, you don't want them to make enough to live. Those are like two irreconcilable positions.
Bro, you are absolutely 100% wilding if you think McDonald's people need to make $20 an hour.
Bro, but how are they going to live if they literally can't afford to get a one-bedroom apartment anywhere in the country on that wage? Then how can we expect to have that service if they can't even have an apartment?
Because you shouldn't be needing to live off. You shouldn't be trying to be living off of a McDonald's salary, getting an apartment. Like what?
Then why should people be making that salary if you can't live off of it? How can that make sense?
Because why are you trying to live off of a McDonald's? Like that's not a job that.
But what do you mean? How many people does McDonald's employ? So then how can you say that a job that employs like 10 million people at minimum is a job that you can't expect to be able to live off of? Then how can we have 10 million people working there if it's a job that you can't live off of? That's an irreconcilable position.
Students, people that don't need to like make that much money.
Everybody needs to make that much money because everybody has bills. There's no person that's going to be like, oh, yeah, I don't need to make as much. When have you ever gotten to a job and been like, oh, well, I mean, this job pays this, but I should actually take less than that because that's all I need? Never.
You said at least 10 million. It's 1.9 million.
Oh, that was way off. That's my bad. I mean, fast food in general has to be at least 10 million.
Bro, why are you wanting, bro? Oh my gosh, like
because they're people, bro. Like you and I could be people that worked at McDonald's.
I've worked at McDonald's and I knew, bro. I worked my behind off for that.
Bro, but you also had like a bunch of privilege that a whole lot of people that were working there did not have.
Oh my gosh, bro. You should not be like 30 years old working at McDonald's.
But if you're 30 years old working at McDonald's and you're providing a service and you're doing it, why should you not make enough to have an apartment,
because you don't get because you don't get to dictate how much what that is, how much that is worth. And it's not worth that much. That job is not worth is only worth but so much an hour.
That's just what we're deciding to say. Like, we're just deciding that like these people don't deserve to be able to live because we don't want to pay them enough to be able to live. Like, you can't dissociate from that. Like, your desire for them to won't make a certain amount is because you would rather only pay $1 for a McChicken than like them be able to live a decent life.
Bro, how do you think they can afford to charge $1? Not even $1.
Because they don't pay their employees.
Bro, what do you expect? Like the employees aren't even worth it. Like it's terrible service.
So human beings aren't worth being able to have an apartment, a used car.
They are
decent bed.
They are, but not if they're working at McDonald's. I'm sorry. Like, how are you going? Like, what in your life?
So is McDonald's just gonna close? We're just not gonna have McDonald's anymore?
I mean, that maybe that needs to happen.
So we're just not going to have any more restaurants, no more grocery stores, no more restaurants. Like, you realize what the world looks like if nobody that makes under $12 an hour, if those jobs just don't exist anymore? Like, it's unlivable. It would not be possible to exist.
Bro, they get a better job. That's all I'm saying.
But there aren't enough better jobs for everyone. Like, there's already people in the better jobs.
There's a bunch of stuff that you can do.
No, but there's not enough for every single person to get a better job. That's why they pay higher.
Side hustles.
Bro, but do you realize how circular this is and how every single time it becomes obvious that like the ideology of people being able to just do something and it not mattering is just factually not accurate? It just becomes like a pivot to like,
Bro, do
oh,
you
well,
realize
like
how
people should just
lazy it
individually
sounds
do
to
this.
want the government to just take care of you?
Bro, the people that have a lot in this country got it from the government. That's where they got it, bro.
Oh my gosh.
Like Bill Gates, he got like an investment from IBM to build an operating system, and then like more investment from the government. Like the people who created the internet and all the subsidiary money that's been created from the internet by the American government, like pharmaceuticals, the American government, like
So then
NASA
apply
putting
for
people on the
grants.
moon, telescopes, like satellites, the American government and the Russian government. Like people did not just pull themselves up and get what they had. Like the government handed it out to some people and not to others. So you can't then say, oh, well, you can't sit around waiting for the government. Like the government just handed out $1 trillion to rich people in the last 3 months. You can't say that we can't just sit around waiting for the government when people that are actually rich are sitting around waiting for the government and they're getting it.
They're not sitting around waiting for the government. They
But yes,
made the
they
changes.
are. They got
They
$1
got
trillion
they got
in interest-free loans.
Oh my gosh, my God! Because they're in position to why? Because they're a business. People, we got stimulus packages, bro. Businesses just got more, so own a business,
Bro, small businesses and like minority-owned businesses did not get it.
bro. The PPP protection program is still going, and there's 140 billion for small businesses to still be claimed.
But have you seen the closure rates of black businesses versus the closure rates of white businesses?
Which is why we, as bigger businesses, need to focus on getting black people into the government. And like that's why I said it all goes back to the big companies are the people that make the changes. So if we are the big companies, we're the ones that make the changes. That's all I'm saying. It goes back into that circle. The big companies are the ones making the changes in the law room because they want the law to go their way. So if we make it so that it's our people in the law system making it better for our people.
But how
Now,
are
now
13% of the population going to get control of the entire political system?
strategically, the same way we are more than 30% of the prison population. Like we are the highest percentage of the prison population.
That's because of specific public policy decisions, like at a governmental, like federal level.
So if we are able to change what each person is doing, if each person is, instead of becoming a celebrity or like an entertainer or something, we're business people, we're able to create a larger influence.
I mean, I guess hypothetically, maybe.
I mean,
But there's one proven like method that works. Like when white people got like government backed mortgages to where they were able to move into the suburbs and then pay that house, have 100,000 in equity, move in a bigger house, leave it to their kids. They do the same for like 7 to 9 generations. Whereas black people were forced to be like renters, stuck in low wage jobs and unable to accumulate any wealth because of like biased policing and discriminatory housing and all that kind of stuff. Like after all that happens, you can't just be like, okay, so figure it out. Like it can't work that way, like logically.
well, people just there's just absolutely no way that there's people that have pulled them out south. Then like it just doesn't make sense.
What'd you say?
It just doesn't make sense that people have done it. Like you say,
Yeah,
it's
because
logically.
individual people can do stuff. Individual people are in the NBA. Everybody can't go to the NBA.
Yeah, but you said you have to go to the NBA to do what you love in that particular area. You can go
That's
overseas,
literally the number one driver of like generational wealth in the black community is the NBA.
which sucks because there's no power in that.
But I'm just saying, it's just a fact. Like only a certain amount of people are going to be in the NBA, and most black millionaires were in the NBA.
Yes, and that sucks. But here's the thing: that's because that's what we're focusing on. We need to focus on owning businesses. Let's focus
Bro,
on
that's
that.
not because it's what we need to focus on. That's one of the few areas in which like we were superior despite discrimination, in which like just because of the physical like attributes of the average black person versus the average white person, because of like slavery and breeding, like we succeed in terms of sports and athleticism. But like that's not something that we can like, it's not because we just only want to be basketball stars. It's like we've been systematically shut out of being doctors and engineers and surgeons and political leaders for generations, and we're only now starting to, only some of us sometimes have these opportunities. So it's about like taking advantage and trying to move up, but we can't
So
like
if we now have
pretend
that
that
opportunity to take
individual people
advantage,
moving up is going to make a difference for everyone, because only some white people are rich, only some black people are going to be rich, and a whole lot of the people of all kinds are going to be working like low wage jobs and like paycheck to paycheck making ends meet. So we need to decide how those people are going to be treated, and we can't just say that you just have to try to not be one of those people, because it's way too many.
bro, I'm not. I disagree. If you feel like we're about to start paying McDonald's workers a lot of money, like for what? They're not doing anything, and they're not good at the job
But
either.
what do you mean? They're providing, they generate billions, hundreds of billions of dollars every year. How are they not doing anything?
Well, they're because they're individually not doing anything. To all together, yeah.
So if you divide the revenue that McDonald's drives, divided by the number of employees that they have, take away all of the costs, all of everything, how many times more than their like wage do you think that they generate in terms of profit?
That doesn't matter. They're not the business owner.
Okay, but like that kind of mentality, that's slavery. Like that's what
That's
that
not
is.
that.
Like
That's not
it
slavery.
literally, it's wage
That,
slavery, because if you're intentionally, structurally paying them like 5% of what they generate, which isn't enough for them to own an apartment and a used car so that you can like keep billions of dollars for yourself, that's no different than being a plantation owner and having black people picking cotton for you all day and keeping all the money and giving them a rusty shack and some like pig parts. It's the exact same. It's just modern.
no, because the jobs weren't meant for supporting a family. They're not meant for that. They're meant for you
Right.
to gain some small skill as like a
But you
college
don't get any
student.
skills from it though.
You do, bro. I got a lot of skills from
Then
McDonald's, bro.
why are all those people still working there if you get skills where you then get a different job?
Because they're not trying to apply. Like they're not like no. Like people don't
But
look
do you
at.
see how you're blaming individual people when the
Yes,
entire like corporation employs 1 million people and pays them $7 an hour on purpose? Like how are those people individually have more power than that corporation?
no one's saying they have more power than the
Then
corporation.
it's not their fault, and you cannot blame them. Like it's one or the other. Either they have the power to determine how much they make, or they work for a giant corporation that says either you work here and make this, or you can't pay rent until you can find somewhere else. And good luck finding somewhere else with the schedule we give you and the way we just like tell you either you need to come in right now or else you're gonna lose your job.
Maybe you need just I'm telling you, but not be in that job situation. It's not for supporting a family. Don't be trying to support a family
But you
and
can't even get a 1 bedroom apartment. That's not a family housing. That's a 1 bedroom apartment. That's just for you.
bunk with some people then.
Somebody who works 40 hours a week doesn't deserve their own room with a door and a toilet that's only theirs. They don't deserve that.
Did you work for it?
Bro, they work 40 hours a week. Yes, they're working for it.
Listen, you work 40 hours a week at McDonald's.
No, but you're working 40 hours a week. Does somebody who's working 40 hours a week deserve to have their own room and their own toilet at their own house?
I mean, at McDonald's, I can't even like say they don't deserve it because
But you're
that's
saying they don't deserve it. If I'm telling you they don't make enough to get it, and you're saying that's totally fine with me, fuck them, then you're saying they don't deserve it.
because you're at McDonald's. So I'm not gonna say you don't deserve it because
But
it's
a
like
million people work there. All million of those people are just screw ups and they just deserve to not make anything. And like
all
it's
mil-
just their fault.
all million of those people are not food handling service workers.
Yeah, but only a really, really small proportion of those people are higher wage people. The overwhelming majority, like 95% of them, are just like hourly grunt work people.
and they
Because
don't.
that's how the pyramid goes. The higher you go, the fewer positions. There's only one regional manager, one state manager. Like you can't tell a store like if one manager manages 18 stores, that's 18 stores that has 4 to 5 to 10 people that all want that one manager job. They can't all get it. And there's Subway over there, but Subway already has 50 employees gunning for that one manager job. So like you can understand how just the way capitalism works, the
So
idea of getting a new job
create a
only
job.
works on an individual basis. It can't work for everyone. So it's just like illogical to bring that up as a solution to low wages.
Then create. You can make a job.
Yeah, but like, how are you going to pay your rent while you're doing that?
Cut grass. Because you're
Most businesses fail. There's only so many lawns. Most people cut their own grass. We just had 2 recessions in the last 10 years.
okay, and a lot of people have made businesses during this recession.
Right, and the overwhelming majority of the businesses that got started failed.
Because you didn't adapt. Did you think it was
Okay,
all
but
going to be
like
perfect? Did you not plan
most
for it?
businesses fail. That's just the numbers.
No, not necessarily. The past couple of years, there has been a net in businesses over that have been started versus businesses that have been shut out.
Right, but that's because like a business starting and ending within that time is net zero.
What do you mean?
A business starting is +1, and then the business ending -1 is net zero.
Right, but there has been a.
So that does not address how many businesses started and failed in any sense.
It does, because you can look at how many businesses failed that year and how many businesses started. If there's more businesses that were started than more businesses that were failed, that means that there's more jobs created than more jobs were taken away.
Right, but what I'm saying is like if you just go by the net, that's showing you how many more. But I'm saying like it's not telling you that like more jobs, like more businesses are succeeding because a business starting and ending still ends at net zero if it's within the time frame. So it doesn't impact the numbers. So there could be a million businesses that started and ended, and it wouldn't impact the number.
And then you move on to the next one. Because here's the thing, you're gonna have made some money. You're gonna
Not
have
necessarily. That's the best case scenario. A lot of people start businesses and end up with debts afterwards.
it's gotta get better at it. Then I'm telling you, there's no
Right, but every single
reason for it.
individual person cannot have a happy ending. That's not the way capitalism works. There's winners and losers, and
That's
like
not the way
the
life works.
losers.
That's not the way life
That
works.
is the way life works. There's winners and losers.
No,
And
that's what I'm saying. That's the way life works. You can't. That's not the way just capitalism works. It's the way life works. You can't just.
well, it's
Some
the way
people,
life works in a capitalist world that like we've decided to run the world that way, to where it's just like, oh, well, like we'll make another nickel if we dump this toxic waste in this river, but these people won't be able to have clean water. Oh well, that'll be a good nickel. Let me put it in my pocket. Like we've just
no,
decided that that's like a logical way to run the world, but like no, it's not.
that's completely on the
Well,
opposite.
that's how capitalism works.
No, we're not. We're not. No, we're not referring
Negative
to.
externalities. That's how capitalism works. You don't pay for negative externalities if you can get away with it. Like pollution, in terms of like people not being able to afford housing because you're creating luxury units and gentrifying. Like that's
On
a
the
negative
basic
externality.
definition,
You
that
don't
is
have to
not what.
pay
On
for
the
that.
basic definition, that's not what capitalism is. What these white people have done, that is a byproduct of how white people are running capitalism, but it is not what capitalism is. What's going on, Ramblers? I don't mean to interrupt today's podcast, but we have a quick mid-roll from our sponsors.
Well, capitalism is like an owner class, like depressing how much they pay for their labor as much as possible
No,
so
it
that they
is
can
not.
keep as much profit as they can.
It is the ability to just. It is the ability to buy and sell.
A market can exist outside of capitalism. Like capitalism is not a requirement to have a market.
But what you want is everyone to basically get a participation award. Like, oh, you're
No,
alive.
what I
Like,
want is for nobody to be allowed to just buy winning by being born in a financial position to where like they don't have to compete in the same game. And that's the system that we have right now, where like 60% of all wealth is inherited. Like that's not, we're not playing the same game. like the 40% of what's left that we're all spent chasing, like is never going to beat that 60% if the rules are stacked to where they're able to create passive income by doing nothing in perpetuity. Like that's just a systemic aspect of capitalism that will never fix itself, no matter what anyone does.
That's no. If we create jobs for Black people and we create our own wealth, we now
You can only get that 40%.
Okay.
Like that other 60% is already owned by people and is going to get inherited.
And there's also 40% is larger than what we have now.
Right, but that doesn't solve the systemic factors that like depress wages and keep people in unstable housing and without health insurance and like without really an ability to have an education that gives them a future without mortgaging like half of their earnings for their life.
Listen, man, you just do. Listen, people just.
And that's where you have to just blame individual people once you get like confronted with all the systemic factors that they're facing.
Because there's
like, and that's why I say like
there's systemic factors, but what does that like? There's always been systemic factors. Period. Like there's always been like what is that stopping the people that are making like clearly there are people that are just not working as hard as other people.
Clearly. That's just not true, obviously, because like people are working 40, 60 hours a week and not getting anywhere.
Okay, so what makes you think that because you worked 40 or 60 hours in a week that you did like
what makes some white kid who had rich parents who like sent him to fancy schools and now he has a high paying job like
no
like do nothing company, why is he worth more working 40 hours 60 hours a week?
Because it's a higher paying job. It's a higher paying job, bro.
But it's only because of his privilege. It's not because he's better. It's just because he was more privileged, went to better schools, had more connections and more opportunities. It's not because they're better. It's just because they were given better options.
Because people, listen, what are we focusing on? Like, what is, when we're young and in the home, that's why I said it starts at the home on the individual level. What are you doing in the household that is in the trying to create generational wealth? Are you like people are being selfish? They think that because they struggle, their kids have to struggle.
But everyone doesn't think that, so that can't address
why are we kicking our kids? Why are we kicking our kids out at such a young age? And not
but that's also individual. That's not happening to everyone.
A lot, a whole lot.
Right, but that's not the reason why Black people haven't been able to build wealth. It's because we've been systemically shut out of housing, which is how most people build wealth, and shut out of higher paying jobs.
Which is why I said the way in order for us to dig our way out is to create those higher paying jobs and give it to Black people.
Right, but there's just, and again, that's what you would do if you want to help. And like, I accept that that's what people individually should do. I'm just like, you just shouldn't confuse helping with solving.
Helping is solving, especially if it solves the problem. Because guess what? The government intervening is not going to solve the problem, and they're not going to do that. So that's never going to happen, and that's not going to happen. So,
well, if the government gave everybody who was housing insecure housing, which is completely within the realm of what it could do, then it would solve the problem of housing insecurity.
And where are you going to put all these people at? What housing? What houses? Who's going to build?
There's more available units right now.
Who's going to pay for all these houses to be built and then maintain?
They already exist. There's more available housing than people who don't have houses. They're just being held by really, really greedy people because they can't get the rent price they want on it.
And who's going to pay for that house, that space?
It already exists.
I said, but who's going to pay for it?
It already exists.
Okay, now if someone has to live there, right? Who's going to pay for someone to live there? It costs to live there.
When the government wants something that poor people own, they take it away. So the government is going to take away the housing because it's sitting empty, and they're going to give it to people so they can live there.
But that's what I'm saying. Who is going to pay the rent? If there is more, you said there's more available housing than there are homeless people.
Yeah.
Who is going to pay for the space in which that homeless person is living?
No, the government is going to acquire and like run and operate housing like they used to. I mean, it still does in some places, but like in a lot of places they privatized it. Yeah, it's just like the thing about America is like Americans are literally the most heavily propagandized people in the entire world. So there's just a whole lot of things that are taught as facts that people just believe that are just like completely ridiculous and not true at all. And one of the biggest
I just don't
ones is
believe
that
people
like
should be get
the
paid to do nothing.
government is less efficient than like private business. Like in virtually every situation and for every enterprise, the government is always more efficient than private business to accomplish like goals. Like if your goal is giving housing, then just having people pay taxes and the government gives housing is the best way. Like if your goal is to feed people, having people pay taxes and the government does food stamps is the best way. Like education, like public schools, that's the most efficient way. Like the only reason we've allowed private business to like interfere into our needs is because people have bought the government so that they can make money.
I just take that as niggas be wanting to get paid for nothing.
What'd you say?
I was like, dude, I take that as people be wanting to get paid for nothing. Like, oh, I don't want to do nothing. All of a sudden, it's like,
But
oh, I
they're
don't want
not
to
doing
work.
nothing. They're working 40 hours a week at
Bro,
McDonald's.
at
That's by definition not
McDonald's,
nothing.
oh my god, I can't stand like that's. Oh my god,
But how is working 40 hours a week doing nothing? In what
bro,
way are those
because
two
you're
things,
at
ideas compatible?
McDonald's.
But don't you want to be able to go to a McDonald's? Doesn't McDonald's sell hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in revenue every single year? So obviously it's not worthless.
Bro, but it's the accumulative. You need a lot of people to do that.
Right. And you could afford to pay them all $20 an hour easily and still make tons of profit, but they don't, so that they can keep it all for themselves instead.
It's not a $20 an hour job.
Right, because they decide that people who work for them don't deserve to be able to have a reasonable standard of living.
No, bro, it's not because they don't deserve to have the reasonable standard of living. It's because the job that they're doing is not like they're doing a simple, small, repetitive. That's the whole process point of the how would I put it? The fast food industry. Like if I can have one person make fries and I can have one person take orders and I can cut the costs because you aren't doing jack squat. You are taking somebody's order. You're not doing that. You're taking an
That's
order.
not doing nothing. That's working. That's standing at a counter. That's listening to people
Okay.
bullshitting.
Okay.
That's helping people with orders. That's like
my
helping
question is
people
this.
that are like
When people, because it's already started to happen where they're putting the machines in for people to order and pay at the machines and then just get their food. What are you going to like as your individual job get, because it's it's literally that easy. A computer can do it.
it's not that it's easy that a computer can do it. It's just that a computer is able to do it. And once a computer is able to do a job, it doesn't make sense to have humans do it anymore.
Exactly. So at some point, because of technology, you would have lost your job anyway. Whether you're
right,
of your
but that
other,
doesn't
whether
mean
you're
that it's
incompetent,
worthless while you're still doing it.
because the job gets cheaper. As if it gets down to the point of technology being able to do the job, that means it's cheap to be done.
That doesn't necessarily mean that, because like
Look at
3D
any
printing,
industry.
3D printing, for example, is extremely complicated, and like yeah, it's cheaper in the long run, but developing that technology and stuff was really expensive, and that doesn't mean that anything a 3D printer can make therefore was like stupid and those people shouldn't have been paid to do it.
Those people got paid a lot of money to make a 3D printer.
No, but I'm saying, like, for example, a 3D printer can make a frisbee. That doesn't mean that people who like work in a factory that makes frisbees, like, oh, well, they should have been making $5 an hour because like now a 3D printer can make it.
Well, before it got to that point, it wasn't worth that much. That's the whole point. Why? Because it's replaceable. It is a small task. You are doing you are a button presser.
I mean, I guess, but here's the thing, like, if we didn't need people to do it, then they wouldn't be doing it. So it can't be both the case that we need them to do it
No,
and
it's
that
not that we
what they're
don't need
doing
people to do
isn't
it.
worth anything.
It's not
Those
that
two
it's not
things
worth
cannot be
anything.
the same.
No one's saying that it's not worth anything. It's just not worth
But
Oh,
if the job is necessary, then the person doing it should be able to live a reasonable standard of life.
but the
Like,
job
like,
is
or
not
you just
worth
don't
a
value
lot.
people and you think people should just like live in squalor and not
I
have
don't
any
think people should
stability or
live in squalor.
happiness.
I don't think people should live in squalor. I think people
Then
need.
how can you create jobs that don't pay enough to live a good life if you don't think people should live in squalor?
I don't think people should be paid for not doing anything. That's what
But
I.
they're not doing anything. They're working 40 hours a week, and after that, they can't afford an apartment or a car.
Because you're doing. What are you doing for your 40 hours a week?
Working
What is your work?
like customer service.
Well, no, you can't bring customer. That's a skill. You said you don't learn any skills at McDonald's. You can't talk about customer services. That's
It's
a
a
skill.
skill that every single person that works in the service industry, which is all that exists in America anymore, has. So it's not a special
It's
skill.
not the. Oh, whoa,
So it's
whoa!
not
I've been to.
differentiable, and
I was at.
therefore you can't get
Listen.
anything from it.
Listen. I was at McDonald's and they lack customer service.
Yeah, but there's millions of people who work at McDonald's that have great customer service. Well, not millions, obviously, but there's a lot of people. Like, you can't judge every person just by having like bad
You can't
experiences at
find
a single
you
McDonald's.
can't find me a complete good customer service. There's maybe one or two people per McDonald's that are good at customer service.
Well, why would you be doing good customer service if you're not making enough to have an apartment or a used car? Like, why
Because
would you be happy?
because it's
Why
pro,
would you be
because
happy and motivated
statistically
to do a
they're
good
not
job at
going
your
to do
job?
because statistically they're not going to do more if they got paid more.
But well, who says that?
They're not going to have better customer service if they get paid
But
more.
who said that? Who says that?
Bro, Chick-fil-A people have wonderful customer service. They
Right,
don't
and they
get
get paid more.
how much more?
I'm not sure, but I know Chick-fil-A people get paid better than most other fast food places. And just like as just a matter of just like logic,
1083.
yeah, the federal minimum wage is $7.25, and there's people that work at McDonald's that are making that in a lot of places.
Okay, well, a lot of states also have higher minimum wages. Like Connecticut's minimum wage is $11.
Yeah, that's pretty high.
Bro, New York's is 15. What are you talking about? California, I think, is also 15.
They're phasing it in still, I think, but like it's supposed to go up to that.
Ours is
But did you
phasing.
know?
Ours is phasing to 15.
But the thing about it is, if minimum wage kept up with like inflation since like 1980, it'd be like $23, $24. So like in terms of buying power over the last 40 years, like minimum wage has decreased significantly.
Because the work has gotten a lot different. Like you're not
No,
doing.
because public policy destroyed unions and brought down people's ability to negotiate for higher wages. That's the only reason. It has nothing to do with the work changing. It just has to do with productivity and wage growth kept up with each other until about 1980, and then it drastically diverged because we changed public policy and allowed like the rich owner class to start taking all the money and not paying any people anymore.
Like, listen, man.
And I don't say it to like bring you down or like ruin the
Nah,
mood or like it's just
I
like
just
like
it's not. Nah, it's not even that. I can't agree because it's just I just can't agree.
right, to accept it means that like you have to have compassion for people that it's a lot easier to not have compassion for psychologically.
No, it's just not having compassion is some
Because if you
people
can
just don't.
blame them for their own circumstance, you don't have to feel bad for them. But if you can't blame them for their own circumstance, then you have to feel bad that millions of people are stuck in low wage jobs to
But
where they
I
can't
mean,
afford health insurance and can't afford
for a
housing or
majority of
transportation.
the people, I can't blame them. It's your fault. You made these decisions.
But you don't know them or anything that they did. So how can you say that?
So why are you working at McDonald's?
Because millions of people are working low wage jobs because there's nothing else they can get. Like, even let's just talk about people with marijuana convictions. Like, those people can't get jobs anywhere but like gas station, fast food type places. Like, what if instead of like either of us having like gotten skated by using marijuana, either of us had been to prison for it and were felons. Like then now
Bro, even
we
as a
can no
felon,
longer just
that does that
easily
does.
just do
Here's
anything.
here's the thing. Even as a felon, that no one has asked me one time. I could be a felon, bro. In my business, I could. No one would know if I was a felon.
Right, but you know the advantages that you had to be able to be in a position to start this business that you just would not have if you were a felon. A
What?
place to live, like somewhat stable income, like the skills that you were able to develop, like through whatever education you have, like the stability and like whatever you had in your home life, like the lack of like, you know,
Bro,
whatever circumstances ended up sending you to prison in the first place. Like there's just a million avenues at which like trying to say that because you accomplished something means other people should be able to do it. Like pretty much no
it's
matter who
not
you
even.
are, you had all kinds of privilege that other people didn't have.
Hey Ramblers, before you go, make sure you're following us on social media at Assistance HQ across the board for all content and exclusives. And for an even more personal touch, subscribe to our weekly newsletter with the link in the description.